This is the Vaugiotto broadcast show. Timpin Salone. And I think that might have been the first time we actually got it on time, so I'm happy about that one.
Mr. Jabisky, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, hanging in there. Been some ups and downs, but overall pretty good. How about you?
Ups and downs. Man, all is well, can't complain. Just it's a pleasure to be in the presence of greatness. But to start the show off, I have a question for you. You ready?
Yep.
What's your greatest test in life?
That's a pretty deep question. So I would say maybe what is going on right now in my life is probably one of the greatest tests. I'll say, for example. So currently I'm in graduate school, so that's just been an adjustment since last time I was in college undergrad. That was now going on 4 years since we graduated in 2020. So now I started graduate school back in the fall of 2023. So kind of halfway through my second semester. So it's definitely been an adjustment, just getting back to the flow of things and just having that balance between schoolwork and then just having time to myself has definitely been challenging at times. But overall, it's just been interesting just to learn because I'm right now studying digital marketing. So that's marketing is one thing I want to look to get into in the future. So definitely a challenge. This is a new subject that I'm learning more about. So yeah, I would say just definitely life after college, just figuring out what you want to do, try and make your goals and just see what you want to do both personally and professionally, just balancing everything else. So I think that's been my biggest test in life right now. What about you?
That's a good question there. You're making me think. I don't know if I could point to just one, because the way I look at tests is just information you don't really have the answers to. And I think a lot of times people focus on the test rather than trying to find solutions to the test. So I think just, continuing to stay productive, continuing to stay efficient, continuing to stay, respectable even when nobody's around, I would say best describes that answer for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but then going along the lines of that, how do you think it's best to deal with adversity, or when you're facing it, what's the best way to approach it?
The best way to face adversity?
Mm-hmm. I guess face or deal with it.
I think I said this before in another episode, just really enjoy the progress. I think if your focus is on the progress, it makes things more easily digestible. How about yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say definitely facing it head on, taking things one step at a time. I think sometimes you might look at the overall big picture, the overall hurdle that you have to go over, but you have to look at things little by little and say, okay, if I do this and get this done one day, that's one step closer to achieving that goal or getting over that hurdle when facing adversity. So I think definitely take your time and trusting the process and going through it. I'd say is the best way instead of looking at overall what you have to do, because you can easily be overwhelmed thinking of the overall big picture instead of looking at the small fine print details.
Well said. We talking today. So, Mr. Jabisky, how do you know if someone is truly and genuinely for you?
I would say definitely as long as they value you and really see your input and output on things. Definitely the important thing you notice, I guess they check in on you to make sure you're doing okay and just overall invest in just your overall process in life and things that you got going on. So I think you can tell when somebody has genuine care for you, really wants the best for you. So I think having someone that that they see value in you and really value your input on things, and they also want you in their life themselves too. So I think having it reciprocal, I think, is what I would say there.
You hit the nail on the head. Reciprocity. I think that's kind of the biggest indicator when it comes to these things. And I think sometimes people try to change themselves or change their partner to fit their narrative or definition of a relationship instead of just accepting who that person is, flaws and all, and just being grateful for, just the experience. But, I think I like to think people know. I think a lot of times people try to force themselves in situations they don't really belong in, and I think that when you're moving genuinely, you just kind of just skip over those environments, if you know what I mean.
Okay, and I guess speaking of that, we know someone's for you the opposite of that. When do you think it's best to walk away from a situation that might not be the best for you?
When is it time to walk away? That's a hard question to answer because it depends on what outcome you are looking for. So I think sometimes you may not want to walk away, or it may be time for you to walk away, but there's still an outcome that you're looking for in the situation, so you may stay. So it really kind of just depends on just your outlook and what you're trying to do. But to answer your question, I think when you start losing yourself and becoming something you never said you was going to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's definitely important to continue to check in on yourself and see if things are changing in a negative way. If they're taking away from your life instead of adding to your life, that might be a good time to really consider walking away. But I'd say, overall, as long as you're continuing to be yourself, like you were saying, and you don't see anything turning for the worse or negative, I think that's when you really know, when you notice those things are happening, and you see there's been a negative influence or bad things are happening in your life because of that. And if you realize, okay, if I step away and take that situation out of it, if you notice improvement, then that's a tell-all sign that maybe that's the time to walk away from that certain situation.
Do you think our generation or millennials are too quick to leave?
I'd say it depends on the situation. I think the main thing is first telling. I guess if depending on what situation you're looking at, whether it be walk away from an individual or a certain atmosphere situation, I think, especially if you're dealing with people, I think if you notice things are turning for the worse, maybe addressing it first and seeing what their reaction is, so that will tell you all that you need to know. So I think if you bring up there are certain things going on, and that if this continues, you have to walk away. I think you're letting that person know, so that gives them a fair chance to say, okay, if things are not changing, things are gonna change. So I think definitely it can depending, but I think as long as I think you do that first step and letting that person know, I think that's the main thing.
You giving people deadlines, Trubisky?
Well, sometimes you gotta do that just for your mental sanity. And to give them a chance to realize, because I guess another thing too is I guess that maybe they may not realize what they're actually doing. So I think if you give them a time, that might give them a chance to really step back and think what's actually going on. So I think a deadline could be very key.
I think that, just communication, respect, and putting your best foot forward in God, those are the 4 foundational pieces in anything that's worth having. And so I think that anything you see that's built without those foundations, usually falls soon. So, just communication, and not communicating when it's good, communicating in the bad too. So just, and that's something I'm even learning. So just put your best foot forward, and please, walk with respect. Amen.
Yeah, that's good. Then even going to the situations aspect, connecting it with sports, for example, with Saquon Barkley, he recently left the Giants in free agency, decided to sign with the Eagles, and some people, I guess, had problems with, but other people said, okay, so he was getting valued by the Eagles because they offered him a great deal, while the Giants, I don't think they even had offered him a deal at the time of the start of free agency, so he was being valued by the Eagles, even though I guess people are saying, oh, how could you go to the Eagles? They're your arch rivals, but he saw that he was being valued, and that was something that was not happening with the Giants. So I think also going with a job, or going with any situation in life, I think if you see you're being valued somewhere else, and there's an opportunity to change your situation, actually enjoy the process of being in that situation, I think that's a good thing to notice and to take advantage of. What do you think?
Well said. I think we got to be careful, though, when we talk about value in business, because those two things are always, like oil and water. They're always kind of hard to quantify, because at the end of the day, you live in a capitalist society where, business is, and profit margins are always the goal. So I think it's kind of hard, as you see kind of in sports, to kind of have that balance between value, profit, and kind of what we're going to pay you. So It's a tricky balance. I guess that's kind of why you see, mainly in the NFL, you kind of guys see always trying to take lesser deals or restructure their contracts. But I don't know. It's a slippery slope there.
So moving on to our next topic, this one's another pretty deep question. How do you deal with regret?
Your perspective. I guess regret comes from wasted action or inaction. And I think the best way to deal with it is to accept it, take accountability, and make tomorrow, better. I think that's the kind of best way to digest that question. How about yourself?
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. Definitely learning from it and just continuing to move forward and not dwelling on it, because if you dwell too much in it, you're going to, I guess, cause yourself to stumble upon even more and the regret that you have. So I think definitely taking things as a learning lesson and using that to move forward, so that if you face with the same situation in the future, you know what to deal with. Because, yeah, definitely if you look at it too much and you continue to look back in the past, you won't really be able to see your future. So just continuing to dwell in the past is not really, or any regret that maybe have negatively impacted your life is not good. So I think definitely overall, just taking it as a learning situation, you can remember it. You can think about it at time to time, but I wouldn't dwell on it too much, because that can really negatively impact you.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's also, too, just learning how to hear the word no. Or I think that's kind of an important piece in just, growing up, is just hearing the word no and even actually having the ability to say no. So I think that's also, very important, just any process of progress and growth.
Yeah, I'd say another thing to add on to that, definitely with regret, is also owning up to any mistakes that you've made in life, because we're all only human. We're going to be making mistakes. So I wouldn't dwell too much on it, just making sure you're always checking on yourself. Okay, even though this happened, I know I can continue to move on and press forward. So I think, yeah, definitely always checking on yourself and taking it more as a lesson learned than dwelling on the past and any negative regret that you have in your life.
Do you think it's important to have people around you in your environment or ecosystem that can check you and hold you accountable?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely need someone from an outsider's perspective, because they're able to see really the full picture, instead of, because I guess you're always going to be the best advocate for yourself, so you're always going to be sticking up for yourself. And most of the time, due to our own human nature, we're going to think that most of the things that we do are going to be things that we believe to be correct. But I think if you have somebody that's really there for you, that's going to hold you accountable, that's going to tell you from right from wrong, that's not out of a place of hate or spite, it's a place of genuinely caring for you and looking out for you, I think that's definitely important to have those people, so they can help continue to steer you in the right path, not get out of your own ways. What do you think?
I would agree with you, and I also think to make the conversation or push the conversation even further, it also takes a level of accountability to even understand and digest the outside perspective and listen to understand and not listening to respond. That's something that, I've even been guilty of, and I'll admit, just, it's one thing to acknowledge the criticism, but it's another one to digest, understand, and make the necessary corrections. That's something that, it's also needed in the progress.
Yeah, that's well said.
But all in all, just, holding yourself accountable. And I think we mentioned that, on previous broadcasts. But yeah, just putting your best foot forward. I'll say that.
So another topic that we wanted to talk about on this Timpin Salone episode is what is the importance of making goals in your life?
Everything has directions and everything have a process. So I think your life should too, in my humble opinion. I think that each day you walk out the house, you have certain plans and certain goals for what you want to do in that day. I think that, if you take that same perspective and apply it to your life and make a goal, not even just a yearly goal, make a daily goal, weekly goal, hourly goal, whatever goal you want to score in. That's probably the best way I'll answer that question.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, it's definitely very important to make goals. I think we all have things we want to achieve in life. in order to achieve those things, you have to work towards them. So I think making those goals, not only like you were saying, not only like during New Year's and the beginning of the year, but making sure you have monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals, and those can all really help you move forward to achieve your overall big goals in life. So I think definitely having things to work towards will help motivate you and help you along through that process of accomplishing those goals and achievements that you want to set out for.
Gotcha. In terms of the Vaugiotto family, what's one of your goals?
I would say definitely continuing to be more consistent. So I think that's one thing that we can look forward to in the future. I guess setting out that goal, just staying consistent with things. I think when you build that consistency, that's how you improve and really just take things to the next level. So I think that's one of my goals, is definitely to stay consistent, whether it be with the show or the other things that we want to work on for Vaugiotto Productions. So I think that's one of my main goals, especially for this year. What about you?
Same thing. Jokes aside, just progress. Just continuing to drive, excel. Just continuing to be of service. It's probably the best way I would say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then continuing this topic is one thing to set out goals, but it's another thing to help achieve your goals, what you're going to do those. So what do you think is the best way to follow through on the goals that you make, whether it be for yourself, professionally, or even right here through Vaugiotto Production?
Beautiful transition. I would probably say accountability. If you have a goal, a daily goal or hourly goal, and you don't achieve those goals, there should be a consequence. Whatever that consequence may be is your discretion. But I think that if you have a goal to, let's say, go to the gym, and you don't go to the gym, there should be a repercussion for that, So I think it just all dwindles down to accountability. That's just, the main overarching thing. How about yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely say having measurable things that you can help progress to work towards achieving that goal. So as you could say, I have an overall goal. I want to go to the gym more, but how are you going to achieve that? You could set a goal. Okay, I want to go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. That will help you achieve that goal. So there's things that you can do to actually measure how you're working towards that goal, the steps that you're taking to really achieve that goal. So I think making sure you set your goal, but also saying, okay, how can I actually achieve this goal? Writing down and really planning out, okay, if I do this and this and this, these are steps that can really help me achieve that goal. So I think, overall, having things that will help you measure progress in the goal that you actually want to achieve.
What if people make goals and they write it down and that's still not good enough and they're still not seeing the results?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think, so you're saying with just writing it down, how just for writing down?
Yeah, they put forth the policy of just, writing things down, having a goal, but it's just not working. Mm-hmm. So how would you suggest they get through that situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you want to have things that you can actually work towards and just making those actual steps little by little. So like you're saying, you write down that goal, but you need to figure out how can you actually do that goal, like really putting your best foot forward. So it's saying, okay, this is an actual step it might not be necessarily a step that will actually have that goal fully complete, but it might be a step where you might be 1% or 2% into that goal, or one step further into that goal. So I think it's good to write down the goal, but having that actionable step. Okay, so you want to read more, but you can have the actual spec. Okay, read 20 minutes a day, doing different things like that, so you can actually check off that goal and really check your progress. I think another thing too is to really being able to look back and seeing what progress you have made, and looking back. Okay, I started from here. How was I able to get from step 1 to step 3? So seeing, okay, you wrote down that plan, and then seeing, okay, I did step 1, which was doing this, and then I was able to work my way up to step 2, which is doing something that might have took a little more effort. So seeing that actually play itself out can really help you achieve those goals they set out to make.
Indubitably. I think that It all comes through with the perspective. I think a lot of times people may be unsatisfied with their current position, but 9 times out of 10, in my humble opinion, is because they're looking at what their neighbor is doing. But I think sometimes if you really can look in the mirror and just understand your progress of, maybe I may not be at a 10, but at least I'm not at a 0. And just, just giving grace for being in that 4, 5, 6, or even 7 range, wherever you kind of fall in your timeline. So it's no secret that sports betting has been the new social currency. So, Mr. Jabisky, what are your thoughts on sports betting? Do you think it ruins the integrity of games, or what's your perspective?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, the positives and negatives with sports betting. I think the positives, the fans are able to get involved, and it's another revenue source for both that at that betting platform, but also the sport that they're collaborating with. But I guess the negative thing is, as I was saying before, the fans get involved, they might get too involved, where they're losing their minds over if somebody makes or misses a shot or how many points somebody scores, for example. So I think there's definitely positives and negatives, but I think, yeah, it's definitely how to manage it the right way, as long as people are not going over the board, over the top with the athletes, because they're really trying to do their best and trying to win games. This is their livelihood that they're taking part of. So as long as it's not negatively impacting them, and still that the integrity of the sport and the game is still there, I think that's the overall main factor. So definitely, yeah, just a balance overall is needed. What do you think?
Yeah, balance is everything. I think that this kind of makes a full circle back to our conversation about just value in business. Whenever you have a business perspective on anything, you're going to squeeze everything out of it. So I think that when we think of sports, we think of how we kind of play sports. But I think if you're in the professional leagues, you realize that this is actually a job. I have to get up every day. I have to clock in. I have to compete. So I think that we're seeing a difference in kind of how people are moving in these specific areas, because I think now you're seeing more shorter contracts, more contracts that you see that you may have not seen in the 90s and 80s, far as no trade clause, far as a certain restructuring, I'll say this, I think that, we'll probably see, even quarterly contracts. I think that now, given just, the load management and kind of the policy, how they kind of implemented that, but I think it's going to be an interesting future in terms of contracts with sports betting.
Yeah, I definitely say it with sports betting, because people are putting their money on it, that they can really take it to a whole nother level as far as the negative impact on the integrity and the morality and ethics of everything. I think there was like an example where I think there was the one Cleveland Cavaliers head coach. He was saying how I think people were yelling during the games about like certain things that they made or missed a three, for example. Or I think there were certain situations where people were finding his home phone number and calling and threatening him and his family. So I think there's definitely a negative side where people take it overboard. I think you definitely see it even with the different companies. They have those disclaimers if you have an addiction, who to call, and different things like that with the gambling and betting. So I think there's a way to do it correctly, but there's a way where it can overflow and get into a negative atmosphere, a negative situation. So I think like everything with life, there's balances to everything. So I think it's one thing to do something for fun, but if you're taking it very seriously, where if you do lose that bet, how you're taking it out of the players, you're sending threatening messages to them on social media, or just causing like a disruptance or anything like that during a game, and verbally attacking and cursing out the players. I think that's where it goes to a level where it doesn't need to go. So I think there is balances to everything, but yeah, overall it can coincide, but you really need to have that balance and not take it out on the players.
What's the best way you think somebody can achieve balance?
I would say definitely looking at the full picture, and really just evaluating that, seeing, I guess even like with this example, both sides. So saying if you were in a certain situation, if you took yourself out of your shoes and put yourself in the other person's shoes, just seeing that in the situation overall, whether it be just work-life balance or just anything in general, just making sure you see the full picture and really just evaluating how you can really achieve everything and really just have a full balance of everything. So I think that's the way to do that. What do you think?
In my humble opinion, I think even if you are right about a situation, look in the mirror and take accountability for the role you played in that situation. Even if it's 1% or 2%, just take the accountability for even involving yourself in that environment or placing yourself or even walking into that environment. So I think once you have that level of accountability, self-awareness, you tend to be peaceful. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
We thank you for your viewing pleasure. As you know, I'm QS Shalon Carter, and this is Brother Jabisky Aaron Williams himself. We want to thank you for your time in viewing us, and we also have something to mention. Jabisky, take it away.
Yep, so I'm not sure if you guys have seen, but I guess during the month of March, we had a new release for our collaboration merch with Jay Instrumental, or otherwise known as Jamel. We had collaborated with his brand and business with Soul EXP, so we had a collaboration merch that dropped on March 1st. So if you haven't already, you can check that out on our website, Vaugiotto.com, and also on our social media. We had just different campaign shoots and videos that you can check out all throughout both the campaign video on our YouTube channel, Vaugiotto Production, and just different campaign promotional content on our Instagram at Vaugiotto.production. So you can check that out. But yeah, thank you again for watching this episode, Timpin Salone. Continue to be on the lookout. We'll have more episodes coming. And like we said in the beginning of the show, we'll be looking to be more consistent with all of our content. So we won't just be here and there, popping in, popping out. We'll definitely be looking to continue to stay consistent and continue to bring the show to you guys. So yeah, thank you again for your continued support. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. YouTube channel at Vaugiotto Production, and Instagram at Vaugiotto.production. And as always, have a Vaugiotto day.
He giving deadlines, people. He giving deadlines.